In the fall of 1991, the peaceful neighborhood of Portland, Oregon was rocked by a mystery that would haunt its residents for years. A young girl vanished without a trace during the night. Her mother found her bed empty and the window wide open, the chill of autumn drifting in. For nearly a decade, there were no answers until one day, the girl's mother unearthed an old toy recorder in a box. When she pressed play, what she heard was something she was never supposed to hear. A sound that would lead investigators to a discovery more shocking than any of them could have imagined. That warm June afternoon, Elaine R.H. stood inside what was once her home, sealing up the final box. Though the furniture was still there, the house already felt hollow. It belonged to her ex-husband Charles now, and that truth sat on her chest like a weight. He moved methodically, as always taping up another box beside her. After 15 years of marriage, even their silence had rhythm. Help me with a like and a subscribe, and please comment what country you are from. Divorce hadn't erased that. Elaine nudged a box toward him, filled with her nursing gear and the stethoscope she got when she graduated. Charles lifted it easily, still strong from years of carpentry. "I'll take this one out," he said, heading for the door. She sealed another, trying not to dwell on how the house had turned into a tomb of memories. After Izzy disappeared, they tried to hold the marriage together, but grief had carved them into strangers. Charles buried himself in woodworking and therapy, Elaine into endless hospital shifts that numbed her thoughts. They started fighting over trivial things, groceries, bills, but beneath it all was the guilt, the blame, the unbearable not knowing. 6 months ago, they'd finally accepted the truth that staying together wouldn't bring Izzy back. Charles returned, wiping sweat from his brow. "That's most of it," he said. "Just a few more." Elaine hesitated. "I want to see her room." One last time. His face softened and he gave her space. She climbed the stairs, brushing her hand against the oak banister Charles had installed years ago. Every creak underfoot echoed a memory. At Izzy's door, she paused before stepping in. The room was frozen in time, pink walls with butterflies, stickers on the white dresser, the My Little Pony comforter still tucked in. Only the window had changed now, locked and barred too late. That night in October remained sharp in Elaine's mind. She'd worked a double, returned at 3 a.m., and checked on Izzy like always. The bed was empty, the window open, cold air moving the curtains. Police searched everywhere, dogs, helicopters, volunteers, but there was nothing, no clues. Just a little girl gone without a sound. Even the FBI had come and gone, leaving only silence behind. Elaine approached the dresser, picked up the framed photo of Izzy grinning in denim overalls. She kissed her fingertips and touched the glass. "Goodbye, baby girl," she whispered. Downstairs, Charles waited by her packed car. They faced each other, two people who'd once vowed forever, now preparing to part for good. "You'll be okay?" he asked. "I'll manage," she replied. "We both will." She got in and rolled down the window. He leaned in, concern etched in his features. "You sure you want to take all this? Your new place is small. If I need space, I'll get a storage unit," she said, then added gently, "Take care of yourself, Charles. We'll see each other around. Yeah, drive safe. The short drive to her new apartment felt like the start of another life. The building was modest, near the hospital, good for her night shifts. A two-bedroom one for her, one for boxes. Moving took hours. The cart helped, but it still meant dozens of trips. Neighbors watched, but kept their distance, which was fine. She wasn't ready for new faces. By evening, the room was stacked with cardboard reminders of the life she'd left behind. Elaine collapsed onto her second-hand couch, exhausted from the move. She knew she should unpack the essentials, work clothes, toiletries, kitchen gear. But her eyes kept drifting to the box labeled Izzy's favorites. Unable to resist, she pulled it close and peeled back the flaps. Charles had packed it while she handled the paperwork, and she'd asked him to include the things Izzy had loved most. On top lay the purple owl plushie, flanked by her favorite unicorn and a few other worn dolls. Beneath them were folded pajamas and dresses that still carried the soft scent of childhood baby shampoo and graham crackers. Tucked underneath were books with bent corners and well-loved pages, Corduroy Where the Wild Things Are, The Velveteen Rabbit. And then Elaine saw it, the red and white cassette recorder. Not the Fisher-Price one Izzy had begged for, but a knockoff from Toys Plus, a compromise when they'd had to prioritize a new water heater that year. The toy felt heavier than she remembered. Curious, she opened the battery compartment to find corroded AA batteries. After wiping the contacts clean, she inserted fresh ones and pressed play. Static crackled, then a small voice broke through. Testing, testing. This is Isabella, Marie Rhodes, and I'm 5 years old. Elaine's heart clenched as tears welled in her eyes. It had been 9 years since she last heard that voice. Izzy talked about her day, her preschool friends, a butterfly in the garden. Then the background shifted movement, and Charles's voice, faint but clear. Izzy, come to the princess room when you're done. Remember what I promised. We'll go to Toys R Us for that new My Little Pony. Elaine froze. Princess room. That wasn't a phrase Charles had ever used for Izzy's bedroom. She rewound it and listened again. His tone sounded strange, cajoling, almost wheedling. And Izzy had never been into princesses. Animals, unicorns, dragons, yes. Maybe it had been a game, or just one of those things parents say. She searched the box for a pony figurine, but none were there. Maybe they were in another box, or maybe Charles hadn't packed them. She set the recorder aside, unsettled, and resumed unpacking. Hours passed as she tucked dishes into unfamiliar cabinets, hung clothes in a smaller closet, placed family photos on different walls. But when she opened her filing cabinet, something important was missing: her nursing license renewal documents. She searched every folder, every box with her name, and came up empty. The clock read 8:30 p.m., and her night shift started at 10. Without the paperwork, she couldn't prove her credentials. She grabbed her phone and called Charles, who answered on the third ring. He was on his way to grief group and wouldn't be back until late, but said she could use her key. Just lock up when you leave, he told her. Elaine thanked him, grabbed her purse, and drove to the house one more time. It looked different now, dark against the sunset, the windows blank and still. Inside, everything remained as she'd left it earlier, but the air felt heavier, lonelier. She made her way to the bedroom, Charles's room now, and flicked on the light. The bed looked unfamiliar, with just one pillow, her old jewelry dish gone from the dresser, the nightstand stripped of romance novels. In the corner, the filing cabinet sat untouched. She pulled open the second drawer and found the folder exactly where it should be, all her documents in place. Relief flooded her. She turned to leave, but paused, the phrase "princess room" echoing in her mind like a whisper she couldn't shake. She climbed the stairs again to Izzy's room. Without the toys and clothes, the space felt cavernous and mournful. She scanned the walls for anything princess-related. No tiaras, no castles, no glittering stickers. The closet was empty, hangers swaying faintly. Then her eyes settled on the old wardrobe. It leaned forward slightly, one leg, no longer flush with the warped wooden floor. She stepped closer and noticed the uneven gap beneath it. Years of damp Portland air had swollen the boards and weakened the frame. When she tried to steady it, the wardrobe wobbled alarmingly. One good shove could knock it over. She couldn't leave it like that. If it fell in the night, Charles might think someone had broken in. The last thing Charles needed was another scare. Elaine thought, glancing at her watch. 7:30 p.m. Harrison's Hardware stayed open until 8. She could grab a few wooden shims and stabilize the wobbly wardrobe before her shift. As she headed toward the door, the phone rang, piercing the silence. Her instincts kicked in, and she reached for the receiver, hand poised to answer before stopping herself. This wasn't her house anymore. The phone, and whatever messages it carried, belonged to Charles now. She stepped back, picked up her folder and purse, and began switching off lights. The ringing stopped, followed by the soft click of the answering machine. Charles's familiar voice echoed into the hallway. "You've reached the Rhodes residence. Please leave a message." Then came a new voice, female, warm and tinged with concern. "Charles, this is Mrs. Johnson from Group. I need you to call me back as soon as possible. You've missed 3 sessions now. That's 3 weeks, Charles. The group is worried. Please call me." Elaine stood frozen. 3 weeks. But Charles had just told her he was headed to therapy. For 5 years, every Tuesday night, he had never missed. It was the one constant after Izzy. And Mrs. Johnson, trusted, steady professional, had been a lifeline during their darkest days. Elaine had left the group after 2 years, but Charles had continued. Why would he lie? And where had he been going? She dismissed the urge to call Mrs. Johnson back. Whatever was going on, it wasn't her place anymore, but unease tugged at her. They'd promised to stay in each other's lives, to support one another even through the divorce. Still conflicted, Elaine stepped out into the cooling air, the scent of pine and distant rain mixing with the twilight. She slid into her car and picked up the bulky handset of the car phone, a relic left by the previous owner, and dialed Charles's number. The line rang once, twice, 3 times, and she was about to hang up when he answered. "Hello?" His voice sounded breathless, off-kilter. "Charles, it's me," Elaine said. "Just checking in. Are you at therapy?" Silence, thick and uneasy, filled the static-laced line. "Yes, Charles stammered. No, I'm on my way. I went to pick up Matthew. He lives far out, but we're going together. I'll be about 15 minutes late. Why do you ask?" The words stumbled out too quickly, too rehearsed. Elaine knew that tone. She'd heard it before, in birthday surprises and polite lies. "I didn't mean to pry," she said carefully. "When I was at the house, the phone rang. Mrs. Johnson left a message." Charles laughed, but it landed awkwardly. "She's strict about punctuality. I've been late before. Maybe she's just being thorough." Late wasn't the same as absent, not for 3 weeks straight. "What did she say exactly?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Elaine hesitated, her instincts prickling. "Nothing specific. Just that she wanted you to call her back. Not a big deal." "Right, well, I should go. Matthew's waiting." "Sure. Drive safe. You too. Bye." The line went dead. Elaine stared at the phone before setting it down, unsettled. 15 years of marriage had taught her Charles's tells, and he was absolutely lying. She started the car and headed to Harrison's Hardware, a 5-minute drive. The family-run store had weathered the rise of chain retailers by sticking to excellent service. The bell over the door chimed as she entered. George Harrison, the owner's son, greeted her with a warm smile. "Elaine, good to see you." "How's everything?" "Fine, George. Just need some shims for a wobbly wardrobe. Aisle 3, halfway down." As he rang up another customer, he called over, "Hey, how's Charles's renovation project going? Need an extra hand?" Elaine paused. "Renovation? Yeah, the hobby room. He was here last weekend, loaded up on supplies. Said he was finally building that space he'd always wanted." Confused, Elaine said slowly, "We don't have a renovation going on." George scratched his head. "Huh. I'm pretty sure it was him. Plywood, paint tools, the whole cart. He said it was for that hobby room he used to talk about." Elaine forced a smile. "Well, I'll ask him about it." "Thanks for the help." "No problem. Shims are right where I said." She found them, made the purchase, and returned to her car, the crinkling bag beside her, a small but sharp reminder of everything that suddenly felt off. A renovation she hadn't heard about. Missed therapy sessions. A hastily built lie about picking up a friend. The details didn't add up, but the picture remained unclear. Maybe Charles was struggling. Maybe the divorce had hit him harder than he let on. People coped in different ways. Projects could be a distraction, and therapy could be a painful reminder. Still, something didn't sit right. At 8:05 p.m., Elaine glanced at the clock and realized she still had time to fix the wardrobe and make it to her shift. The day had taken on a strange, dreamlike quality. Just that morning, she'd been a married woman living in this very neighborhood, and now she was a guest in her own past, uncovering secrets in a house she thought held none. She started the car, unaware that with every mile back to Charles's house, she was moving closer to a truth she wasn't ready to face. Pulling into the driveway for the second time that evening, she grabbed the crinkling hardware bag and her purse, determined to finish quickly and leave. George's mention of the renovation echoed in her mind. Maybe Charles really had picked up his old hobby. In their early days, he had spent hours carving detailed wooden animals with delicate hands and quiet focus. The key turned smoothly in the lock. The house was dark, save for the porch light she'd left on. She flipped on the entryway switch and started up the stairs. But halfway up, she froze. Light was coming from under Charles's office door. That wasn't right. She turned everything off. Charles, she called, pausing. No reply. But then movement. A thud, the shuffle of hurried steps, something dragged across the floor. Charles, are you home? Still nothing. A knot of unease tightened in her chest. At the top of the stairs, the sounds grew sharper, papers rustling, a drawer slamming shut. She stepped toward the office and pushed the door open. Charles, I thought you were. But the words fell away. Standing in the chaos of the ransacked office was Matthew Tenko. Papers littered the floor. Drawers gaped open, books scattered like debris. He turned slowly, his skin ashen, face slick with sweat, eyes glassy and wide. His normally neat hair was matted and wild. Matthew, Elaine whispered, stunned. What are you doing here? I thought you were with Charles. He stared through her, his pupils blown wide like black holes. She took a cautious step forward, heart pounding. Are you okay? You don't look well. The stench of alcohol hit her then, strong, bitter, tangled with something sour and acrid. Did Charles ask you to find something? She asked gently, trying to mask her rising fear. But Matthew said nothing, just stepped closer, movements jerky and off balance. Elaine's instincts screamed. Stay right there, she said firmly. I'll call for help. But when she reached for the phone, he lunged. His hands clamped down on her wrists like a vice, and she cried out, Let go, Matthew! You're hurting me! She struggled, wrenching herself free, stumbling back toward the hallway. She grabbed the door, tried to slam it shut, but he wrenched it open with terrifying force. Panic surged. This wasn't the kind friend who used to build toys for Izzy, the quiet man who once helped Charles repair their deck. This was someone else, unrecognizable, dangerous. She turned to flee, but he was on her in an instant, arms locking around her waist as he dragged her down the hallway. No, she shouted, kicking and twisting, but he was stronger, fueled by something dark. He burst into Izzy's bedroom and threw her onto the small bed. The My Little Pony comforter softened the impact, but before she could escape, he was on her, pinning her with his weight. His breath was rancid with whiskey as he reached for her, eyes glazed with something far worse than drunkenness. Matthew, please, she begged, voice breaking, struggling beneath him. Don't do this. You have a wife, a child. Think about them. But her words seemed not to reach him at all. He didn't seem to hear her. His face remained eerily blank as he reached for her clothes, his movements mechanical as if detached from reality. Elaine's hand groped for anything within reach and landed on Izzy's ceramic nightlight, the pink elephant she'd bought years ago. With a desperate swing, she slammed it into Matthew's temple. I'm sorry, she gasped, but I have to do this. He grunted, staggering sideways, and clutching his head, giving her just enough time to scramble off the bed and bolt for the door. But he recovered fast. His hand latched onto her arm and spun her around, slamming her into the old wardrobe. The breath whooshed from her lungs as she collapsed to her knees, dazed, just as the unstable piece of furniture shuddered and toppled forward with a deafening crash. The impact cracked the floorboards, revealing a gaping hole beneath them. As the dust settled, Elaine blinked through the haze and saw cardboard boxes, dozens of them tightly packed into a hidden cavity. Each box was filled with VHS tapes and VCDs. Matthew's face lit up with twisted joy. This is what I was looking for, he muttered, dropping to his knees and scooping up the tapes with greedy hands. Elaine, still reeling from the fall, watched in stunned confusion. What were these tapes? Why had they been hidden under the floor? "Stop!" she cried, lunging forward and knocking a few from his grip. They skittered across the floor, but Matthew snarled, clutching what he could and shoving past her with frightening speed. She heard his footsteps thunder down the stairs, followed by the slam of the front door. Elaine staggered to the window just in time to see him flee down the driveway, clutching his loot, never once looking back. Shaking, bruised, and utterly confused, she slumped against the wall, her mind racing. What was on those tapes? What had he been willing to attack her for? Her gaze fell to the broken floor and the boxes that remained untouched. Whatever Matthew had taken, it was only a portion. The rest still sat there waiting to be found. She reached for one with trembling fingers. Its label, scrawled in permanent marker, read Princess Room Volume 47. In the same haunting phrase from Izzy's old tape recorder, now dripping with a menace she couldn't name. Her heart pounding, she rose to her feet and called 911. Her voice unsteady as she told the dispatcher a man had attacked her, broken and stolen something. His name was Matthew Tenko. As she waited for police, she couldn't stop herself from inspecting the fallen tapes. Each one was labeled the same way: Princess Room Volume 23, in Volume 89, in Volume 256, in hundreds, maybe more, each tucked into meticulously organized boxes beneath Izzy's room. Sirens soon pierced the air. Red and blue lights strobed across the darkening sky. A uniformed officer appeared at the door, hand resting on his holster. "Ma'am, are you Elaine Rhodes?" She nodded shakily. "The man who attacked me left about 10 minutes ago. He was drunk or high. He took some of those," she said, pointing to the tapes. Officers fanned out through the house, securing it as a man in plain clothes approached. He introduced himself as Detective Morrison, mid-50s, kind eyes, shadowed by too much experience. Elaine told him everything: Matthew, in the office, the attack, the wardrobe following the tapes. When she mentioned Matthew's name, Morrison asked for confirmation. "Yes," she said. "He's Charles's best friend. They've known each other since high school." She hesitated. "I need to call Charles. He should know." She dialed his number. Morrison watching. Charles picked up, voice sharp. "Elaine, why do you keep calling Charles?" she said carefully. "Where are you?" "I told you I'm with Matthew at therapy." "What is this about?" Her stomach dropped. Another lie. Charles Matthew was just here. He attacked me. The police are here now. The line went silent. "They want to talk to you," she added, passing the phone to Morrison. "Mr. Rhodes, the detective said you need to return to your residence immediately. There's been an incident involving," but the call cut off. Morrison frowned. He hung up. Elaine whispered, "He said he was at therapy." "But he can't be." Matthew was here. Morrison issued quiet orders to his team to locate the therapy center and reach Mrs. Johnson. Then he turned to the tapes, picking one up and reading the label. "They all say Princess Room. What does that mean?" Elaine shook her head. "I don't know. I heard the phrase today for the first time in years on a recording of my daughter." Her voice wavered. "Izzy. She went missing 9 years ago." Morrison's eyes sharpened. "Your daughter is missing?" "Yes," Elaine said, barely able to speak. "Isabella Rhodes, 5 years old when she disappeared from her bed. No leads, nothing." The detective exchanged grim glances with his team. "Ma'am, I think we need to see what's on these tapes." They moved into the living room, where Elaine powered up Charles's DVD player and inserted a disc. The screen came to life with flickering static. Then it cleared, revealing a cozy scene: Charles and young Izzy sitting on the living room floor, playing with blocks. Her laughter echoed in the room, high and sweet, the same voice Elaine had heard on the recorder. This was before she whispered, before she disappeared. Maybe a few months. On screen, Charles smiled warmly at the camera. "Izzy, want to play a game? Go to the princess room and surprise me." "Okay, Daddy," Izzy chirped, jumping up and dashing off camera. Her little footsteps echoed faintly as she descended the stairs. Charles turned to the camera, looking directly into the lens, and began counting slowly, deliberately, drawing out each number, several seconds between them. Elaine watched with a frown. "She's going to the basement," she said, confused. "But we never called it the princess room." When Charles reached 10, he stood and the camera followed him as he walked calmly to the basement door and disappeared downward. The footage cut abruptly. When it resumed, the setting was unfamiliar: a pink room filled with stuffed animals, a child-sized bed draped in princess-themed sheets. Elaine didn't recognize it. She had never seen this room before. Izzy sat uneasily on the bed, wearing a tiny bikini far too mature for a child her age. Her discomfort was visible, her body language timid and uncertain. "Now pose for Daddy," Charles's voice coaxed from behind the camera. The next moments turned Elaine's blood to ice. Charles entered the frame and sat beside their daughter. His movements calculated, his hands touching her in ways no father ever should. Izzy's small face twisted in confusion, in silent fear. "Stop!" Elaine cried out, voice raw. "Turn it off." Morrison hit pause instantly, the image freezing on a frame that should never have existed. Elaine collapsed onto the couch, her sobs wrenching from somewhere deep and broken. Her reality shattered in seconds. The man she had loved, trusted, shared a life and a home with, he was a monster. "I never knew," she gasped. "I never saw that room. Oh God, my baby." Morrison sat beside her, voice calm but urgent. "Mrs. Rhodes, I need you to think. Could your daughter still be in this house in the basement?" Elaine's head snapped up, stunned. She had never considered it. "The basement. It's always locked." Charles said it was for safety, to keep tools secure. He has the only key. Just then, an officer stepped forward. "Detective, I spoke with Mrs. Johnson. Charles Rhodes hasn't attended therapy in 3 weeks. He's not there tonight." Morrison's face hardened. "That's enough for probable cause. We're going into that basement." He turned to his team. "Get the breaching tools. We're breaking through." Elaine stood, wiping her tears. "Yes. Do it." If there's any chance she couldn't finish the sentence. Could Izzy have been here all this time? Could she have been beneath their feet for 9 long years? Officers returned with a battering ram and crowbars, assembling at the basement door, an overly reinforced slab of oak that suddenly made horrifying sense. "Stand back, ma'am," Morrison instructed. Elaine stepped aside, heart pounding so loudly she could barely hear the first thunderous impact. The door shuddered but held. A second blow splintered the frame. A third sent fragments flying. On the fourth strike, the door crashed inward, revealing stairs descending into dark silence. An officer flipped the switch. Fluorescent bulbs flickered, then hummed to life, bathing the basement in sterile light. Morrison led the descent, gun drawn, flanked by officers. Elaine remained upstairs, breath held, until she heard him call clear. "You can come down." She followed hesitantly. The basement looked unchanged: workbench, neatly arranged tools, labeled bins, washer and dryer in the corner. Everything in perfect order, too perfect. "My husband is meticulous," she said softly, her voice echoing. "He used to build things down here." Morrison nodded, but his eyes were sharp. "Check everything. There's got to be something hidden." Officers fanned out, knocking on walls, tapping for hollow spots, inspecting for new paint, odd seams in the concrete, anything that stood out. Above, more officers watched the tapes, and the occasional groan or whispered curse drifted down. Elaine didn't want to know what they were seeing. "George from the hardware store said Charles bought renovation supplies," she added quietly. "Said he was working on a hobby room." Morrison turned to her. "Do you have the house's blueprints?" "Not anymore," Elaine replied. Charles would, but she stopped. Charles wasn't helping anyone. The search dragged on. Officers lifted bins, pulled at shelves, pried around the water heater. Minutes passed. Elaine found herself on the floor, crawling, checking under furniture. If Charles had hidden something, he would have done it well. She moved toward the washer, angled her head under it, and paused. A sliver of metal caught the light, a thin, gleaming edge that didn't match the rough concrete. Her voice shook as she called out, "Detective, there's something under here." Morrison and two officers rushed over, gripping the washing machine and heaving it away from the wall with a screech of metal on tile. The dryer followed, dragged aside to reveal what had been hidden behind them: a dusty disc lying on the floor. Morrison picked it up, reading aloud, "Room volume 331. In." One officer pointed at the wall behind where the machines had been. Now exposed, a section of drywall looked subtly off, its paint slightly mismatched, the seam too carefully concealed. Morrison ran his fingers along the edge and felt the telltale give of a hidden latch. The panel was a masterclass in disguise, perfectly flush, nearly invisible until now. "Stand back," he ordered. He tried the latch, but it held firm. An officer handed him a crowbar, and after a few tense seconds of scraping and leverage, the lock gave with a brittle snap. The panel swung open, revealing a narrow, unlit passage. Strung along the ceiling were pink fairy lights, unplugged, but clearly meant to guide the way. A wave of stale air rolled out, thick with mildew, metal, and something unidentifiable but human. Morrison found the outlet and plugged in the lights. The corridor glowed with a soft, eerie pink, casting shadows on soundproofed walls. It was just wide enough for one person to pass through. "Jesus Christ," one of the officers muttered. They moved in single file, Morrison leading the way. 20 feet in, the tunnel ended at another door. This one painted pink, adorned with sparkly princess stickers. Morrison tried the handle, locked. He knocked. "Police." "Open the door." Silence. He pressed his ear against the wood, but shook his head. The soundproofing made it useless. He knocked again, harder. A soft click followed. The door cracked open. A voice, cheerful, young, called out, "Daddy, you're early." Then the door swung wider, revealing a teenage girl in a pink nightgown, her hair long and tangled, her smile freezing as her eyes registered not her father but strangers. A piercing scream The scream escaped her, shrill and terrified. She backed away, covering her face. "No, no, you're not real, Daddy," said. "Everyone's dead." Elaine pushed past the officers. Despite the years, despite the changes, she knew instantly. "Izzy," she cried, running toward her. "Darling, it's Mommy. It's me." The girl shook her head, pressing into the wall. "No, my mom died. Dad said the world ended. It's just us." Elaine dropped to her knees, arms outstretched. "No, baby. That's not true. I've been looking for you all these years. I didn't know you were here." "Daddy," Izzy screamed. "Help, where are you?" "Look at me," Elaine begged. "Really look at me." Morrison, standing just behind, handed her a pen. Understanding, Elaine drew on her hand a butterfly with a smiley face, the same one Izzy had asked for over and over as a little girl. "Remember this? You called it your happy butterfly." Izzy stared, her breathing, slowing, recognition flickering in her expression like a light returning after long darkness. "Mommy," she whispered. "But Daddy said." "I know, sweetheart," Elaine said, her voice trembling. "But he lied. I'm real. I'm here." Izzy threw herself into her mother's arms, sobbing. Elaine held her tightly, burying her face in the tangle of her daughter's hair, her tears falling fast. She was alive. After all this time, her baby was alive. Morrison and the team entered carefully, taking in the room: pink walls, stuffed animals, a mattress with faded Disney sheets, toys, both for a child and a teen. A small TV sat in the corner with a VCR and disc player flanked by professional lighting equipment and a tripod, its camera mount empty. Coloring books lay beside a narrow drawer in the wall, likely used to deliver food. In the closet, officers found evidence that turned their faces: grim adult items in child sizes, tools, equipment that spoke of things too dark to imagine. "We need medical," Morrison said into his radio voice, low. "And confirmed Charles Rhodes and Matthew Tenko are now primary suspects in an abduction and child abuse case." Paramedics arrived quickly, careful in their approach. Izzy, stunned but compliant, allowed the examination while clinging to Elaine. Outside, inside the ambulance, the world felt suddenly huge. Izzy sat beside her mother, looking out with wide eyes. "I thought everyone was dead," she repeated. "Daddy said there was a war, nuclear bombs, that we were the only ones left." She turned to Elaine, her voice barely audible. "He said I needed to have a baby to save the human race, but I never got pregnant. I felt like I was failing him." Elaine's stomach turned. She forced herself to stay steady. "Sweetheart, have you gotten your period yet?" Izzy nodded. 2 years ago. Daddy was so happy. He said now we could start the new world for real." The paramedic jotted notes, her face expressionless. "Do you have any pain, itching, or discomfort?" Izzy looked puzzled. "No. Why is everyone so scared?" Elaine gently took her hands. "Because what your father did to you wasn't love. It was wrong. A child shouldn't be treated that way, not by anyone, especially not a parent." "But I love Daddy," Izzy said, her voice soft and confused. "I know, baby, and that's okay. But there are different kinds of love. A parent's love is supposed to protect you, not hurt you." Izzy fell quiet, processing. The paramedic finished her evaluation. "She's stable," she told Elaine. "But we need to take her to the hospital for a full exam." Elaine nodded, understanding the scope of what lay ahead: pregnancy tests, STD screenings, psychological trauma assessments. Morrison appeared beside the ambulance. We need to bring you both to the station for statements. Medical says she's stable enough so we can do that first if you're willing. Elaine looked at Izzy, who stared at her lap dazed. Yes. Let's get this over with. As they prepared to leave, a horrifying truth settled over her. Charles had orchestrated everything, the divorce, the distance, all to make room for the life he wanted to live in secret. He had imprisoned their daughter beneath their own home, while Elaine grieved above never knowing the truth lay just below her feet. Elaine had lived above that basement for years, sleeping upstairs, working her shifts, building a life around the grief of losing a daughter she thought was gone forever. Yet, the truth had lived beneath her feet the whole time. And as they left, the pink fairy lights still glowed in that narrow hallway, a grotesque reminder of the 385 days Izzy had spent in that nightmare. 9 years of stolen childhood twisted into something unspeakable. Outside, Morrison opened the patrol car door and spoke gently. "Mrs. Rhodes Isabella, please get in. We need to take you to the station." Elaine helped her daughter into the back seat, sliding in beside her. Izzy clung to her silently, overwhelmed and disoriented, her world having exploded in just a few hours. Though the medics had cleared her for now, everyone knew deeper examinations were needed. Officer Chen adjusted the radio as static gave way to dispatch chatter. "Unit 12, we've apprehended Charles Rhodes and Matthew Tenko at 3542 Riverside Drive. 6 additional suspects in custody. Requesting transport van." Morrison leaned forward. "That's them." "Chen, where's Riverside?" "5 minutes away, sir," Chen replied. "It's on the way." "Make a quick stop," Morrison said. "I want eyes on that scene." As they drove through Portland's quiet, rain-dampened streets, Elaine held Izzy close, the girl occasionally whispering questions when her father would return where he had gone. Each question twisted deeper into Elaine's heart. More radio chatter followed. "Be advised, evidence of child exploitation materials found." CSU requested. Elaine covered Izzy's ears, though the girl hardly reacted. When they turned onto Riverside Drive, the street was filled with flashing lights, patrol cars, and a gathering of stunned neighbors. Morrison stepped out quickly. From the car, Elaine could see everything. 8 men handcuffed near a van, including Charles, who stood hunched and silent, and Matthew, visibly impaired, barely able to stand. The others varied in age, some appearing shocked, others smug. Officers moved in and out of the house with evidence bags. From the cracked window, Elaine caught fragments, found them watching a video. Princess Room Volume 962, part of something called the Family Sanctum Fellowship. Rotating homes shared material. Her stomach turned. A club. They had formed a community around their horror. She wondered how many children had suffered, how many homes looked ordinary on the outside, but held monsters within. Then Charles looked up. Their eyes met across the distance, and for a terrible moment he smiled. Cold fury ignited in Elaine. "Wait here," she said to Izzy, stepping out before anyone could stop her. She strode toward Charles, her hand flying with a slap that echoed off the houses. "You're a monster," she shouted. "You're not human." Charles barely blinked. "It was consensual," he said flatly. "Izzy loved me." She wanted shut up. An officer wrenched his arm. Not another word. Another officer pulled Elaine gently away. Please, ma'am, this won't help. Through her tears, she saw Matthew smirk and make a vulgar gesture with his tongue. It took everything she had not to lunge at him. Get her back in the car, Morrison ordered. These men aren't worth it. She returned to Izzy, who looked up with tearful confusion. Why did you hit Daddy? I'm sorry, sweetheart, Elaine said, pulling her close. I shouldn't have, but I had to. Outside, officers began loading the men into separate vehicles. The van departed first, then 2 patrol cars. Charles didn't look back. Elaine stared at the house as crime scene techs carried out box after box tapes, DVDs, electronics, pieces of evidence representing other stolen childhoods. Yellow tape went up. Neighbors whispered, stunned that such horror had lived so close. Morrison returned somber. Let's get you to the station. You both did incredibly well tonight. As they drove, Elaine gazed back one last time at the place where evil had worn a familiar face and lived behind a normal door. She wondered how many more houses like it existed. Izzy yawned, her body finally giving into fatigue. When can I go home? She asked. Elaine stroked her hair gently. Soon, sweetheart. We'll find you a safe home now. The station came into view, its lights cutting through the dark like a lighthouse. Behind them, Charles and the others were being processed, fingerprinted, photographed, catalogued like objects. Elaine caught a glimpse through the booking window. Charles stood with eerie calm, as if this were just another Tuesday. A woman in a gray suit greeted them. I'm Sarah Martinez from Child Protective Services. I'll stay with Isabella while you give your statement. Izzy gripped Elaine's hand. I want to stay with Mommy. I know, Sarah said gently, but we need to speak to you both separately. Your mom will be right down the hall. Elaine knelt and hugged her. It's okay. They want to help us. I'll see you very soon. Morrison then led her to a small room where the real reckoning, the first of many, was about to begin. In the beige interview room, under the steady gaze of a recording camera, Elaine sat across from Detective Morrison. Take your time, he said gently. For nearly an hour, she recounted everything: her marriage to Charles, Izzy's birth, the night her daughter vanished, the endless grief, the unraveling of their relationship, the divorce, and finally the discoveries of that terrible night. When she finished, she felt hollow. What happens now? She asked. What did Charles do to our daughter? Morrison's expression darkened. You have a right to know, but it's disturbing. He led her to a viewing room where Charles sat in interrogation, cuffed, calm, and speaking freely. I took her that night. His voice echoed through the speaker. October 15th, 1991. Elaine was working. I carried Izzy to the princess room I'd built. She never even woke up. I staged the scene, open window, empty bed. Everyone believed it. Elaine's breath caught. Charles continued, almost proud. I told her the world ended. Nuclear war. It was just us. She believed everything. One detective asked why. Charles shrugged. She was mine. I created her. Why shouldn't I keep her? I gave her everything. And when she was old enough, she needed to help repopulate the earth. Elaine crumbled into a chair, Morrison at her side. He was always meticulous, she whispered. I never suspected. I worked nights. He had time. The second detective asked, how did we miss it? Charles smirked. You barely searched. The basement looked cluttered. I faked permits, gave you false plans. The room was soundproof, no vents, invisible. Morrison gently touched Elaine's arm. Let's go. You've heard enough. Back in the interview room, she sat silently, her world forever changed. Elaine sat heavily, the weight of everything crashing down. What about Matthew? Why did he break in? Morrison's expression darkened. He's been surprisingly honest. When we raided the house, he was ranting about Charles. There's been rivalry between them for years. In that sixth circle, Charles was the star. He made the most videos, had the most compliant victim. His material was treated like a prize. Matthew became obsessed, developed desires for Izzy, but could never find where Charles kept her. So he decided to steal the tapes instead. He broke in tonight through the back door. He didn't expect you to be there. Elaine nodded faintly. He attacked me. He confessed to that too, Morrison said gently. Said you reminded him of Izzy. Elaine shivered. Your daughter is going to need extensive therapy, Morrison added. She may seem okay now, but 9 years of manipulation and abuse, there's deep trauma under the surface. I know, Elaine said. But she's alive, and we have a chance. Morrison stood. Let's get you back to her. Down the hallway, Izzy sat with Sarah Martinez, and when she saw her mother, she jumped up and ran into her arms. Mommy. They held each other tightly, both crying, clinging to the miracle of survival. An officer will take you to the hospital soon, Sarah said. In the quiet waiting room, Izzy curled into her mother's side, and for a long time they said nothing. Then the sobs came, not confused, but wrenching. The officer told me everything, Izzy said. And I think they're right. Dad lied to me about everything. The world didn't end. You weren't dead. She looked up with shattered eyes. Why did he do that to me? Elaine held her close. I don't know, baby. Sometimes people we trust do terrible things. But none of it was your fault. I loved him, Izzy whispered. Even when I thought I was saving the world, I feel so stupid. You're not. Elaine said, stroking her hair. You were a child. He should have protected you. But we'll get through this. Together. It won't be easy, but we're stronger than we think. Around them, the station quieted. Somewhere Charles and the others were being booked, their futures sealed by evidence and testimony. But Elaine's focus had shifted to Izzy, to what came next. We'll find a new home, she said softly. You'll go to school, make friends, have a life that's really yours. Izzy nodded. Will people hate me? Will it hurt moving on? No, Elaine said. It won't be easy. But time helps. Talking helps. Love helps. You'll create new memories to soften the old ones. And you get to choose who to trust, who you tell your story to. That power belongs to you now. An officer appeared in the doorway. Ma'am, your escort to the hospital is ready. They stood, fingers laced. As they walked through the station, Elaine thought about the journey ahead. Doctors' therapy courts, rebuilding trust. Teaching Izzy about the world she'd been denied. But they would do it together. Because love, the real kind, endures. It fights through darkness. It breaks false walls. It never stops searching. At the station doors, Izzy looked up. I'm scared, Mom. Elaine squeezed her hand. Me too, she said. But we're together now. And together we can face anything. They stepped into the night toward the waiting car, toward healing, and toward a future they would build one day at a time. Thank you for choosing my video. among thousands of videos out there to watch helping me with like a subscription of yours is very small but very big and too valuable.